The rifle felt like an extension of her own arm as Annalise Harper stepped up to the line, ignoring the whispers and snide comments from the 23 men who had come to prove their superiority at the Amarillo Shooting Contest of 1884. She had traveled 3 days from her family's ranch outside of town, camping under the stars with nothing but her horse, her father's old Winchester, and a burning determination to win the $200 prize that would save their land from the bank. Her father had died 6 months ago, thrown from a spooked horse, leaving Annalise and her younger sister Margaret to manage everything alone. At 22 years old, Annalise had become both mother and father to 15-year-old Margaret, and she would be damned if she let some banker in a fancy suit take away the only home they had ever known. The October sun beat down on the dusty competition grounds just outside Amarillo, Texas, where a crowd of nearly 200 people had gathered to watch the annual contest. Most had come to see which ranch hand or drifter would claim the title this year. None of them expected to see a woman register her name in the ledger, and the tournament organizer had actually laughed when she handed over her $2 entry fee. Annalise wore her usual work clothes, brown canvas pants that had belonged to her father, a cream-colored shirt with the sleeves rolled to her elbows, and a leather vest that had seen better days. Her dark blonde hair was pulled back in a practical braid that hung down to the middle of her back, and her green eyes were focused and calm despite the hostility radiating from the male competitors around her. The first round was simple: hit 5 bottles at 50 yards. Annalise waited her turn, watching as man after man stepped up, fired, and either celebrated or cursed depending on their accuracy. When her name was finally called, the crowd went eerily quiet. She could feel every eye on her as she loaded her rifle with smooth, practiced movements her father had taught her since she was old enough to hold a gun. She raised the Winchester to her shoulder, breathed in, breathed out, and squeezed the trigger. The first bottle exploded into glittering shards. 4 more shots rang out in quick succession, each one finding its mark with devastating precision. The silence that followed was deafening until a single voice rose above the stunned quiet. "Hot damn! Did you see that?" Annalise turned to see who had broken the spell of shocked silence. A cowboy stood at the edge of the competition area, his hat pushed back on his head, a huge grin splitting his sun-bronzed face. He was tall and lean, probably in his mid-20s, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and warm brown eyes that sparkled with genuine delight. He started clapping enthusiastically, and the sound seemed to wake the rest of the crowd from their stupor. "That was incredible," the cowboy continued, his voice carrying across the grounds. "Best shooting I have seen all day, and I have been watching since sunrise." A smattering of reluctant applause joined his, though many of the men looked like they had swallowed something sour. Annalise felt heat rise to her cheeks, though she was not sure if it was from embarrassment at being the center of attention or something else entirely. She nodded politely in the cowboy's direction and stepped back to let the next shooter take his turn. The second round proved more challenging. The targets were smaller clay pigeons launched into the air at unpredictable intervals. Competitors had to hit 3 out of 5 to advance. Annalise watched as the field narrowed from 24 to 12. When her turn came again, the same cowboy who had cheered for her moved closer to the shooting line, as if he did not want to miss a single moment. The first pigeon flew high and to the left. Annalise tracked it smoothly and fired, watching it disintegrate into orange dust. The second came faster, lower, but she was ready. The third seemed to hang in the air for an eternal second before her bullet found it. She missed the fourth, the clay disc wobbling in an unexpected gust of wind, but she hit the fifth dead center. The cowboy let out a whoop that startled several nearby spectators. "That is how it is done. Did you all see that? Poetry in motion, that is what that was." This time, Annalise could not help but smile slightly as she glanced in his direction. He was grinning at her like she had just won the whole competition, not merely advanced to the next round. Something about his unrestrained enthusiasm made her feel lighter, as if the weight she had been carrying since her father's death had lifted just a fraction. The third round came after a brief lunch break. Annalise ate the cornbread and dried beef she had packed, sitting on a bench in the shade of a scraggly mesquite tree. She was just taking a long drink from her canteen when a shadow fell across her. "Mind if I sit?" the enthusiastic cowboy asked, already lowering himself onto the other end of the bench without waiting for an answer. "Name is August Jensen. I work at the Triple Bar Ranch about 10 miles north of here." "Annalise Harper," she replied, keeping her voice neutral. She had learned to be wary of men who approached with friendly smiles. Too many of them thought a woman alone was an invitation. But August did not seem to have any ulterior motives. He pulled out his own lunch, a cloth-wrapped parcel that revealed cold chicken and biscuits, and started eating with the unself-conscious hunger of a man who worked hard for his living. "I have never seen shooting like that," he said between bites. "Where did you learn?" "My father taught me," Annalise said. "We have a ranch outside town. Had to be able to protect the livestock from coyotes and wolves." "Had to be?" August picked up on her word choice immediately. "Your father does not ranch anymore?" "He died 6 months ago. Horse threw him." The words still hurt to say, even after all this time. August's expression shifted to one of genuine sympathy. "I am sorry. That is rough. You running the place alone now?" "My sister and I together. She is 15. Annalise took another drink of water, debating how much to share with this stranger. Something about his open, honest face made her continue. "The bank holds the note on our land. If I do not come up with $200 by the end of November, they will foreclose." "So you came here to win it," August said, understanding dawning in his eyes. He looked at her with new respect. "That is brave. These men, they do not like being shown up by anyone, let alone a woman." "I noticed," Annalise said dryly, "but I do not need them to like me. I just need to shoot better than them." August laughed, a warm sound that seemed to come from deep in his chest. "Well, you are doing that all right. You are in the top 12 now. 6 more rounds to go." They sat in companionable silence for a few minutes, finishing their meals. Annalise found herself relaxing in August's presence in a way she had not relaxed around anyone since her father died. He did not try to flirt or offer unwanted advice. He just sat there, solid and steady, like he was content to simply share her space. "Why are you not competing?" she asked eventually. August shrugged. "I am a decent shot, but nothing special. Plus, I used my spare cash to buy my mother a new stove for her birthday. She has been cooking on the same old beat-up thing for 20 years. He grinned. "Worth it to see her face when it was delivered last week." Before Annalise could respond, the tournament organizer called for competitors to gather for the 4th round. She stood, brushing crumbs from her pants. August stood too. "Good luck," he said, "though I do not think you need it." The 4th round involved shooting at playing cards pinned to a board at 75 yards. Each competitor had to shoot the ace of spades through the center. If the bullet hole touched the spade in the middle, they advanced. If it hit anywhere else on the card, they were eliminated. Annalise studied the distant white rectangle of the card, calculating for wind and distance. She had made similar shots 100 times on the ranch, shooting at markers her father had set up. She could do this. She fired. The tournament official walked to the board, examined the card, and held it up. The bullet had passed directly through the center of the spade. The crowd murmured, the sound a mix of impressed appreciation and resentful disbelief. August's cheer rose above it all. Perfect shot, absolutely perfect. By the end of the round, only 6 competitors remained, Annalise and 5 men. The atmosphere had shifted from dismissive to hostile. The men glared at her between rounds, their pride wounded by the fact that a woman was outperforming them. But Annalise kept her head down and her focus sharp. She had not come this far to be intimidated now. The 5th round was speed shooting. Competitors had to hit 6 targets as fast as possible while maintaining accuracy. The fastest time with all 6 targets hit would win the round. A miss meant elimination. The first man finished in 18 seconds with 1 miss. He was out. The second took 22 seconds, but hit all 6 targets. The third finished in 19 seconds, also with all hits. The fourth rushed and missed too, eliminating himself with a string of creative cursing. The fifth took his time, finishing in 25 seconds with perfect accuracy. Then it was Annalise's turn. She blocked out everything except the targets in front of her. When the official dropped his hand to signal the start, she moved with fluid efficiency, working the lever action of her Winchester like she had been born with it in her hands. Load, aim, fire, load, aim, fire. The rhythm was as natural as breathing. Time, the official called. 16 seconds. All targets hit. The crowd erupted. This time the cheering was not just from August, though his voice was still the loudest. Even the men who had been hostile earlier could not help but acknowledge the skill they had just witnessed. 16 seconds was faster than anyone had shot in the 5-year history of the contest. August was waiting when she stepped away from the line. His eyes were bright with excitement. "You are going to win this," he said. "You are actually going to win." "There is still one more round," Annalise reminded him, but she felt a flutter of hope in her chest. She was so close. Just one more round, and the $200 would be hers. The ranch would be saved. The final round was announced: long-distance precision shooting. Each remaining competitor, there were only 3 now, would take one shot at a target 300 yards away. The closest to the bullseye would win. In the event of a tie, there would be a shoot-off. The crowd pressed closer, sensing the climax of the competition. Annalise could feel the weight of their attention, the pressure building like steam in a kettle. She took a deep breath and let it out slowly, the way her father had taught her. Pressure was just another thing to account for, like wind or distance. The first man shot. His bullet hit 2 inches left of center, respectable but not perfect. The second man took his time, carefully adjusting for wind. His shot landed 1 inch right of center. Better. Then it was Annalise's turn. She approached the line with her Winchester, aware that this was it. Everything depended on this single shot. She could feel her father's presence, almost like he was standing beside her, his hand on her shoulder the way it used to be when he guided her through difficult shots as a child. She loaded the rifle, raised it to her shoulder, and sighted down the barrel. The target seemed impossibly far away, a tiny speck in the distance. She calculated for the slight breeze blowing from the west, for the heat shimmer rising from the ground, for the imperceptible tremor in her own muscles from hours of competition. Time seemed to slow. Her heartbeat steadied. The world narrowed to just her, the rifle, and the distant target. She breathed in, breathed out halfway, and gently squeezed the trigger. The rifle bucked against her shoulder. Through the scope, she saw the target twitch. Then the official was running toward it, and the crowd was holding its collective breath. The official reached the target, examined it, and turned back toward them. He raised both arms above his head and shouted, "Dead center! Perfect bullseye!" The crowd exploded into noise. August let out a yell of pure joy, jumping and pumping his fist in the air like his own child had just been born. Other men were clapping, shaking their heads in amazement, slapping each other on the shoulders. Even the competitors she had beaten were applauding, their competitive pride giving way to genuine respect for a master at work. Annalise lowered her rifle, hardly able to believe it. She had won. She had actually won. The tournament organizer approached with the prize money in a leather pouch. He still looked slightly dazed, as if he could not quite believe what had just happened. "Miss Harper," he said formally, "you are the winner of the 1884 Amarillo Shooting Contest. $200 as promised." He handed her the pouch, then added grudgingly, "That was the finest shooting I have ever seen, man or woman." Annalise took the money with hands that were suddenly trembling. "Thank you," she managed to say. Then August was there, sweeping her into an impulsive hug before seeming to realize what he was doing and setting her down quickly, his face flushing red. "Sorry," he said. "I got carried away." "But that was amazing! You were amazing!" Annalise found herself laughing. the sound bubbling up from somewhere deep inside that she had thought had dried up and blown away after her father's death. "Thank you," she said again, but this time the words were just for him. "Thank you for cheering for me. It helped more than you know." August's embarrassment faded into a warm smile. "I could not help it. When I see something worth celebrating, I have to make noise about it. And you, Annalise Harper, were definitely worth celebrating." The way he said her name sent an unexpected warmth through her chest. She looked up at him, really looked at him for the first time, and saw not just enthusiasm and kindness, but something else in his eyes, something that made her breath catch. "Can I buy you dinner?" August asked. "To celebrate your victory? There is a decent restaurant in town, nothing fancy, but they make a good steak." Annalise knew she should say no. She had the money she came for, and she needed to get back to the ranch, back to Margaret, back to the endless work that waited for her. But looking into August's hopeful face, she found herself nodding. "All right," she said. "Dinner sounds nice." They walked into Amarillo together as the sun began to set, painting the Texas sky in shades of orange and purple. The restaurant August led her to was small and clean, with checkered tablecloths and the smell of cooking meat making her stomach growl. She had not realized how hungry she was, how much the day's tension had taken out of her. Over steaks and potatoes, they talked. August told her about growing up on a farm in Kansas, about coming to Texas 3 years ago looking for work, about the Triple Bar Ranch, where he had found a place that felt like home. He talked about his mother, who still lived in Kansas with his younger brother, and how he sent money back to them whenever he could. Annalise found herself opening up in return, telling him things she had not shared with anyone. She talked about her father, about the ache of losing him, about the fear that had kept her awake at night, wondering if she would be able to keep the ranch going. She talked about Margaret, who was smart and sweet but still so young, who cried herself to sleep sometimes when she thought Annalise could not hear. "You are stronger than you think," August said quietly when she finished. "Coming here today, winning that contest, that took real courage. But more than that, keeping your ranch running, taking care of your sister, not giving up even when things looked impossible. That is true strength." Annalise felt tears prick at her eyes, the first she had allowed herself since the funeral. "Some days I do not feel strong. Some days I feel like I am barely holding on." August reached across the table and took her hand. His palm was calloused from rope and leather, warm and solid. "That is what strength is," he said. "Not never being afraid or tired or overwhelmed. It is keeping going even when you are all those things." They sat there for a long moment, hands clasped across the table, something unnamed but powerful flowing between them. Then August cleared his throat and reluctantly let go. "I should probably get you to wherever you are staying. It is getting late." "I was planning to camp outside town and head home at first light," Annalise admitted. August frowned. "By yourself? That is not safe." "I camped by myself on the way here," she pointed out. "That was before you won $200 in front of several hundred people. Word will spread. I do not trust some of those men not to try something." August's expression was serious now, worried. "At least let me ride out with you, make sure you get a safe camp set up." Annalise wanted to argue, to insist she could take care of herself, but the truth was that August had a point. And beyond that, she found she was not ready to say goodbye to him yet. "All right," she agreed. They collected their horses from the livery, Annalise's sturdy bay mare and August's rangy buckskin gelding, and rode out of town together. The moon was rising, full and bright, turning the landscape into something magical and otherworldly. They found a good spot near a small creek, with rocks for shelter and water for the horses. August helped her set up camp with the easy efficiency of someone who had done it 1,000 times. He gathered firewood while she spread her bedroll, and soon they had a cheerful fire crackling between them, pushing back the darkness. "I should head back," August said, but he made no move to stand. Instead, he poked at the fire with a stick, sending sparks spiraling up into the night sky. You could stay, Annalise heard herself say. Just for safety, I mean. Keep watch. August looked up at her, and in the firelight, his eyes were dark and warm. Are you sure? I am sure. He nodded and began to unsaddle his horse for the night. When he finished, he settled down on the opposite side of the fire from her bedroll, leaning back against his saddle. Tell me more about your ranch, he said. What is it like? So Annalise told him. She described the little house her father had built with his own hands, the barn that always leaked in the northeast corner no matter how many times they patched it, the wide pastures where their small herd of cattle grazed. She talked about the view from the porch at sunrise, the way the land seemed to go on forever, endless and free. She described the hard work, the early mornings and late nights, the constant battle against weather and predators, and simple exhaustion. But as she talked, she realized something. She loved it. Despite everything, despite the struggle and the fear and the loneliness, she loved that ranch. It was home, and she would fight with everything she had to keep it. It sounds wonderful, August said when she finished. Hard but wonderful, the kind of place worth fighting for. It is, Annalise agreed softly. They talked into the night, the conversation flowing as easily as the creek beside them. August told her funny stories about the other ranch hands at the Triple Bar, about cattle with attitudes and horses with personality. He told her about the time he had been thrown into a water trough by an ornery bronc, about learning to rope from an old vaquero who barely spoke English but could spin a lasso like it was magic. Annalise found herself laughing more than she had in months, the sound strange and wonderful in her own ears. When had she last laughed like this? When had she last felt this light? Eventually the fire burned down to embers, and exhaustion caught up with both of them. Annalise lay down on her bedroll, wrapping herself in her blanket against the desert's nighttime chill. Across the fire's dying glow, she could see August's silhouette, sitting up with his rifle across his knees, keeping watch. August, she said softly. Yeah? Thank you. For today, for all of it. You made it better. There was a smile in his voice when he replied. It was my pleasure, Annalise. Now get some sleep. You have a long ride tomorrow. She closed her eyes, and for the first time since her father died, she felt safe, protected, and maybe, just maybe, not quite so alone. When Annalise woke, the sun was just beginning to paint the eastern horizon pink and gold. She sat up to find August already awake, tending to a small fire and heating a pot of coffee over the flames. He looked up when he heard her stir and smiled. Morning, he said. Coffee will be ready in a minute. Annalise stood and stretched, working out the kinks from sleeping on the ground. You did not have to stay up all night watching. I slept some, August assured her. Enough. I wanted to make sure you were safe. They shared the coffee and some of Annalise's remaining cornbread, sitting side by side as the sun rose and chased away the night's chill. It should have been awkward, this intimacy with someone she had only met yesterday, but instead it felt natural, like something they had been doing for years. When they finished breakfast and packed up the camp, August walked her to her horse. I guess this is goodbye, he said, and there was regret in his voice. Annalise swung up into the saddle, looking down at him. She did not want it to be goodbye. The thought of riding back to the ranch and never seeing August again made her chest ache in a way that had nothing to do with her father or the bank or any of her usual worries. The ranch is about 20 miles southwest of here, she said, the words coming out in a rush before she could second-guess herself. Harper Ranch. If you are ever out that way, you should stop by, for a meal or just to rest your horse or whatever. August's face lit up like she had just given him the best gift in the world. I would like that, he said. I would like that a lot. In fact, I get a day off every other Sunday. Maybe I could ride out this week, help with some of the heavier work. I am pretty handy with repairs, and you mentioned that barn leak. Annalise felt warmth bloom in her chest. This Sunday would be good, she said, trying to keep her voice casual, even though her heart was suddenly racing. Margaret would like to meet you, and the barn definitely needs work. Then I will see you Sunday, August promised. He reached up and briefly squeezed her hand where it rested on the saddle horn. Ride safe, Annalise. You too, she replied. She urged her mare into a trot, glancing back once to see August standing where she had left him, watching her go. He raised his hand in farewell, and she waved back before turning her attention to the trail ahead. The ride home seemed shorter than the journey out, even though it took just as long. Annalise's mind was full of August, replaying their conversations, remembering the sound of his laugh, the warmth in his eyes. She had not expected this. She had come to Amarillo focused solely on winning the prize money, on solving the immediate crisis threatening her home. She certainly had not expected to meet someone who made her feel like the sun had come out after a long, dark winter. It was mid-afternoon when she finally rode up to the ranch house. Margaret came running out, her dark hair flying behind her, relief written all over her young face. Annalise, I was getting worried. Did you win? Annalise dismounted and pulled the leather pouch from her saddlebag, holding it up. I won. Margaret let out a squeal of delight and threw her arms around her sister. I knew you could do it. I knew it. Now the bank cannot take the ranch, right? Now the bank cannot take the ranch, Annalise confirmed, hugging her sister tight. The weight that had been pressing on her shoulders for months finally, blessedly lifted. They were going to be all right. They spent the evening celebrating with a special dinner, Margaret insisting on making her famous apple pie, even though it meant using up their precious sugar. As they ate, Annalise told her sister about the competition, about the men who had underestimated her, about winning the final round with a perfect shot. And then, trying to sound casual, she mentioned August. He sounds nice, Margaret said, her eyes dancing with curiosity. Is he handsome? Annalise felt her cheeks heat. I suppose so. I did not really notice. Liar, Margaret said cheerfully. You are blushing. When are you going to see him again? He is coming here Sunday to help with some repairs, Annalise admitted. Margaret practically bounced in her chair. That is wonderful. Finally, something interesting happens around here. I mean, besides saving the ranch, which is also wonderful, but this is romantic. It is not romantic, Annalise protested. He is just being helpful. If you say so, Margaret said, in a tone that clearly indicated she did not believe a word of it. The days leading up to Sunday seemed to drag by and fly past at the same time. Annalise threw herself into ranch work, but she found her mind wandering at odd moments, thinking about August, wondering if he would really come or if he would change his mind. Maybe he had just been being polite. Maybe she had read too much into his kindness, but when Sunday morning arrived and she heard hoofbeats approaching the ranch, her doubts evaporated. She looked out to see August riding up the path, his buckskin gelding moving at an easy lope. He was dressed in clean work clothes and had a toolbox tied behind his saddle. Margaret was practically vibrating with excitement, but Annalise gave her a warning look. Behave yourself, she said. Do not make this weird. I would never, Margaret said innocently, which fooled neither of them. They walked out to meet August as he dismounted. Up close, in the clear morning light, he was just as handsome as Annalise remembered, maybe more so. He swept off his hat and grinned at both of them. Miss Annalise, Miss Margaret, he said formally, then winked at Margaret. I have heard a lot about you. Your sister says you are the smart one in the family. Margaret beamed. She is just biased, but I am definitely the charming one. August laughed. I can see that. Well, I came to work, so put me to use. What needs fixing? They spent the day working together. August proved to be as handy as he had claimed, tackling the barn roof with confidence and skill. Annalise worked alongside him, handing him tools and holding boards in place, while Margaret brought them water and sandwiches and kept up a steady stream of cheerful conversation. As they worked, Annalise found herself watching August when she thought he was not paying attention. She noticed the way his muscles moved under his shirt as he hammered, the concentration on his face when he measured and cut boards, the gentle patience he showed when Margaret asked him 1,000 questions about ranch life at the Triple Bar. And sometimes she would look up to find him watching her too, with an expression that made her heart skip. By late afternoon, the worst of the barn leak was patched. August climbed down from the roof, dusty and sweaty but satisfied. That should hold for a good long while, he said, though you will want to replace the whole section of roof before next winter. Thank you, Annalise said. I could not have done that alone. What do I owe you? August looked offended. Nothing. I did not come here for pay. I came to help a friend. Friend. The word should have made Annalise happy, and it did, but it also made her feel a strange pang of disappointment. Was that all they were? Friends? At least stay for dinner, she insisted. Margaret made stew, and there is plenty. August did not need much convincing. They ate together at the small table in the kitchen, the three of them talking and laughing as the sun set outside. It felt right, natural, like August was supposed to be there. Even Margaret seemed to sense it, the way she kept glancing between August and Annalise with a knowing smile. When it came time for August to leave, he lingered by his horse, clearly reluctant to go. I had a really good day, he said to Annalise. Your ranch is as wonderful as you described. And Margaret is great. She liked you too, Annalise said. I could tell. August looked down at his boots, then back up at her. Annalise, I know we have only known each other a few days, but I cannot stop thinking about you. Would it be all right if I came back next Sunday? And maybe the Sunday after that? Annalise's heart soared. I would like that. I would like that very much. August's smile could have lit up the whole prairie. Then it is a date. Well, not a date unless you want it to be. I mean, I would like it to be, but I do not want to presume. Annalise stepped forward and put her hand on his arm, cutting off his nervous rambling. August, it is a date. He let out a breath he seemed to have been holding. Good, great, wonderful. He mounted his horse, still grinning like a fool. I will see you next Sunday, Annalise Harper. She watched him ride away into the gathering dusk, her hand still warm from where it had touched his arm. Behind her, she heard Margaret sigh dramatically. You two are adorable, Margaret said. I give it 3 more weeks before he proposes. Margaret! What? I am just saying what we are both thinking. That man is head over heels for you, and you are just as gone for him. It is obvious to everyone. Annalise wanted to argue, but she could not, because Margaret was right. Somehow, impossibly, in the space of just a few days, August Jensen had walked into her life and turned everything upside down in the best possible way. The following Sunday, August arrived even earlier than before, this time bringing supplies to fix the wobbly front porch steps. The Sunday after that, he helped Annalise mend fences. The Sunday after that, they rode out together to check on the cattle, with Margaret tagging along as an enthusiastic chaperone. With each visit, the connection between Annalise and August deepened. They talked about everything and nothing, sharing stories and dreams and fears. August told her about his hope of one day owning his own ranch, about wanting to build something lasting. Annalise confessed her worry about Margaret, about wanting to make sure her sister had opportunities and choices that she herself had never had. They also shared comfortable silences, working side by side on ranch tasks with an easy partnership that felt like they had been doing it forever. And there were moments, brief but electric, when their hands would touch or their eyes would meet, and the air between them would crackle with possibility. It was Margaret who finally got impatient with their dancing around each other. 6 weeks after the shooting contest, on a cool November evening, she announced she was going to bed early, then proceeded to give Annalise the most obvious wink in the history of winking before disappearing into the house. Annalise and August were left alone on the front porch, sitting side by side on the steps he had fixed weeks ago. The sun had set hours before, and the sky was a blanket of stars, so thick and bright it seemed impossible. Your sister is not subtle, August said with amusement. Never has been, Annalise agreed. I am sorry if she is making you uncomfortable. I am not uncomfortable, August said. He was quiet for a moment, then continued. Actually, I am glad she left us alone. There is something I have been wanting to talk to you about. Annalise's heart started to race. What is it? August turned to face her, his expression serious but warm. Annalise, these past few weeks have been the best of my life. Every day that I am not here, I am counting the hours until I can see you again. Every night I fall asleep thinking about you. You are brave and strong and kind and so damn beautiful it makes my chest ache. He reached out and took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. I know it is fast. I know we have only known each other a short time, but I also know what I feel, and I feel like I have been waiting my whole life for you. I love you, Annalise Harper. I am in love with you. Annalise felt tears spring to her eyes, but they were happy tears, joyful tears. I love you too, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I did not think I would ever feel this way about anyone. I thought maybe I was not built for it, that all I could do was work and survive. But then you came along and cheered for me, and suddenly everything was different. Everything was better. August cupped her face with his free hand, his thumb brushing away a tear that had escaped. Can I kiss you? He asked softly. Please, Annalise whispered. He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to change her mind, but she met him halfway. When their lips touched, it was gentle at first, tentative, but then it deepened into something more. Annalise had been kissed before, clumsy attempts by boys at barn dances when she was younger, but this was nothing like those fumbling encounters. This was fire and tenderness, passion and promise. This was everything. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, August rested his forehead against hers. Marry me, he said. Annalise pulled back to look at him. What? Marry me, August repeated. I know it is crazy. I know I should wait, court you properly, but Annalise, I do not want to wait. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. I want to help you run this ranch and build a life together. I want to be a family with you and Margaret. Say yes. Please, say yes. Annalise thought about all of the reasons she should say no, or at least ask for more time. They had only known each other 6 weeks. Marriage was a huge step. What if they were caught up in infatuation and it faded? But then she looked into August's eyes and saw her future there. She saw stability and partnership and love, real love, the kind that lasted. She saw a man who had proven himself time and again, who showed up when he said he would, who worked hard, who made her laugh, who believed in her. She saw home. Yes, she said. Yes, I will marry you. August let out a whoop of joy that probably woke half the county and swept her into his arms, spinning her around until they were both dizzy and laughing. From inside the house, they heard Margaret shout, Finally! I thought you two would never get there. August set Annalise down, but kept his arms around her. How did she hear that? Probably had her ear pressed to the door the whole time, Annalise said, not caring in the slightest. We should go tell her properly. They went inside to find Margaret in her nightgown, practically bouncing with excitement. You are getting married? Really, truly getting married? Really, truly, Annalise confirmed. Margaret threw her arms around both of them. This is the best day ever. Well, second best after the day you won the shooting contest and saved the ranch. But this is a close second. They spent the next hour making plans. August said he would talk to his boss at the Triple Bar, see if he could be released from his contract. I have some money saved, he said. Not a lot, but enough to contribute to the ranch operations. And I can do odd jobs in town if we need extra cash. We will figure it out together. Annalise said firmly. That is what partners do. They decided on a simple wedding in 2 weeks, just long enough to make arrangements and get the word out to the few family members and friends they wanted to invite. August would move into the ranch house after the wedding, and they would build their life from there. When August finally left that night, after many long goodbyes and more kisses that made Margaret giggle and tease mercilessly, Annalise felt like she was walking on air. Everything had changed so fast. Just 2 months ago, she had been drowning in fear and responsibility, alone and overwhelmed. Now she had hope and love and a future that looked brighter than she ever could have imagined. The next 2 weeks passed in a flurry of preparation. Annalise used some of the prize money to buy fabric for a simple but pretty dress, cream-colored with lace at the collar. Margaret helped her sew it, the two of them staying up late by lamplight, talking about the future. "Are you happy?" Margaret asked one night as they worked. "Happier than I have been since Papa died," Annalise admitted. "August is a good man, Margaret. I am lucky to have found him." "He is lucky to have found you too," Margaret said loyally. "Not every woman can save a ranch and win a shooting contest and catch the heart of the best cowboy in Texas." Annalise laughed. "The best cowboy in Texas? Well, obviously. He has excellent taste, so he must be the best." August came by twice during those 2 weeks, unable to stay away even though tradition said he should. He brought Annalise a ring, a simple gold band that had belonged to his grandmother. "She would have loved you," he said as he slipped it onto her finger. "She was tough as nails, just like you. Raised 5 kids on a homestead in Kansas, could shoot a rifle and skin a deer and birth a calf all in the same day." "She sounds amazing," Annalise said, looking at the ring gleaming on her hand. "She was. I wish you could have met her." August kissed her knuckles. "2 more weeks, and you will be my wife." "I still cannot quite believe it." "Neither can I," Annalise admitted, "in the best possible way." The wedding took place on a bright December morning in the little church in Amarillo. August's mother and brother made the long trip from Kansas, arriving 2 days early. His mother, Sarah, was a warm, sturdy woman with August's same brown eyes and kind smile. She hugged Annalise tight the first time they met. "You are perfect for him," Sarah said. "I can see it in the way he looks at you. That boy has been waiting for someone like you his whole life." A few of the ranch hands from the Triple Bar came, along with some neighbors from surrounding ranches. Even the tournament organizer showed up, still seeming slightly bemused by the whole situation. "Never thought the shooting contest would lead to a wedding," he said, shaking his head. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. Annalise wore her new dress with wildflowers in her hair that Margaret had picked that morning. August wore his best clothes, his hair neatly combed, looking so handsome it made Annalise's breath catch. When the preacher asked if she would take August to be her husband, her "I do" rang out clear and certain. When August said the same words, his voice was thick with emotion. They kissed to seal the vows, and the small gathering erupted in applause. As they walked back down the aisle together, hand in hand, Annalise looked up at her new husband and saw her whole future in his eyes. The reception was held at the ranch, with tables set up outside and food contributed by everyone who attended. There was music and dancing, and Annalise found herself swept around in August's arms, laughing as they spun across the makeshift dance floor they had cleared in the yard. "Happy?" August asked, pulling her close. "Completely," Annalise said. "Entirely. Absolutely." As the sun set and the party continued around them, they sneaked away for a few moments alone, walking out to look at the land that was now theirs together. The ranch spread out before them, gold in the fading light, full of promise. "I have been thinking," August said, "what if we expand the herd next spring? With both of us working, and with the extra money from your prize, we could probably manage another dozen head." "That is exactly what I was thinking," Annalise said. "And maybe fix up the old bunkhouse. Hire on some help. We could really build something here." August wrapped his arm around her waist. "We will build something amazing. Together." They stood there as the stars began to appear, the sounds of their friends and family celebrating behind them, and Annalise felt a deep, abiding peace. This was what her father had wanted for her when he taught her to shoot, when he left her the ranch. Not just survival, but a real life, full and rich with love and possibility. The years that followed were not always easy. Ranching never was. There were droughts that tested their resolve, hard winters that thinned the herd, and the constant grinding work that came with running a spread. But through it all, Annalise and August faced everything together, a true partnership in every sense of the word. Margaret grew into a beautiful young woman, eventually falling for a young teacher who came to Amarillo to start a school. She married him 2 years after Annalise and August's wedding, and they built a house in town. But she came back to visit often, and the bond between the sisters remained strong. 3 years after their wedding, Annalise gave birth to a son. They named him Thomas after her father. He had August's dark hair and Annalise's green eyes, and from the moment he could walk, he was following his parents around the ranch, trying to help with every task. 2 years later came a daughter, Emma, who had her mother's determination and her father's easy laugh. And then, 3 years after that, another son they named Robert, who was quiet and thoughtful and had a gift with animals. The ranch prospered under Annalise and August's joint management. They expanded steadily, carefully, never taking on more than they could handle. August proved to have a good head for business, while Annalise's shooting skills meant predators learned to stay far away from their livestock. Together, they built a reputation for quality cattle and honest dealing. On quiet evenings when the children were in bed and the day's work was done, Annalise and August would sit on their porch, the same porch where he had first proposed, and watch the sunset paint the sky. Sometimes they talked, sharing the details of their day. Sometimes they sat in comfortable silence, hands clasped, needing no words. "Do you ever think about that shooting contest?" August asked one evening, years after it had happened. Thomas was 7 now, Emma 5, and Robert 2, all asleep inside the house. "Sometimes," Annalise said. "It changed my whole life. If I had not won, we would have lost the ranch, and I never would have met you." "I think we would have met eventually," August said. "We were meant to find each other." "Maybe," Annalise agreed. "But I am glad it happened the way it did. I am glad you were there that day, cheering louder than anyone else. I am glad you saw me." August brought her hand to his lips and kissed it. "I will always see you, Annalise. Always cheer for you. That is what you do when you love someone. You show up and make noise about it." Annalise leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the solid warmth of him, the steady beat of his heart. "I love you," she said, the words as true now as they had been that first night on the porch. "I love you too," August replied. "Every single day I love you more." They sat there as the stars came out, the sounds of the ranch settling around them, the lowing of cattle, the chirp of crickets, the soft nicker of horses in the barn. This was their life, built together from a single moment of courage and a voice raised in celebration. This was their home, their family, their future. Years continued to pass in the rhythm of ranch life. Thomas grew tall and strong, learning to rope and ride with the same dedication his mother had once applied to shooting. Emma proved to have her mother's steady hand and sharp eye, and by the time she was 12, she could outshoot most of the ranch hands. Robert had a gentleness about him that made him invaluable when breaking horses or caring for sick animals. When Thomas was 18, a young woman named Catherine came to Amarillo with her family. She was smart and capable, with a quick laugh that reminded Annalise of Margaret. Thomas courted her with the same earnest determination August had shown all those years ago, and within a year, they were married. They built a small house on the ranch property, and Thomas began to take on more of the daily management, preparing to eventually take over. Emma showed no interest in marriage, much to the frustration of several young men in the area. I have plenty of time, she told her mother, when Annalise gently asked about it. And besides, if I ever do marry, it will be to someone who sees me the way Papa saw you, someone who cheers for me. That is all I want for you, Annalise said, hugging her fierce, independent daughter. On Annalise's 45th birthday, the whole family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. Thomas and Catherine were there with their two young children. Margaret came from town with her husband and their three kids. Emma helped organize everything, bossing everyone around with cheerful efficiency. Robert, now 20, had brought a girl he was sweet on, a quiet redhead who worked at the general store. As Annalise looked around at the crowd of people she loved, at the ranch that had nearly been lost but now thrived, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. So much could have gone differently if she had not had the courage to enter that contest, if she had not made that final, perfect shot, if August had not been there cheering louder than anyone else. But it had all happened exactly as it was meant to, and here they were. August found her alone for a moment in the kitchen, wrapping his arms around her from behind. He was 50 now, with silver threading through his dark hair, but to Annalise, he was as handsome as the young cowboy who had swept her into his arms all those years ago. "Happy birthday, my love," he murmured against her ear. "Every day with you is happy," Annalise said, turning in his arms to face him. "Every single one. Even the hard ones? Especially the hard ones, because we face them together." August kissed her, soft and sweet, the kiss of two people who had built a lifetime together and knew they had many more years ahead. When they broke apart, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "Another present?" Annalise asked. He had already given her a beautiful new rifle, custom made to her exact specifications. "Just a little something," August said. "Open it." Inside the box was a locket on a delicate gold chain. Annalise opened it to find two photographs, one of August and herself on their wedding day, young and full of hope, and another taken just last month of their whole family gathered on the porch. "So you always have us close to your heart," August said softly. Annalise felt tears spring to her eyes. "It is perfect. You are perfect." "Not perfect," August corrected. "Just yours." They went back outside to rejoin the party, and someone called for speeches. Thomas raised his glass and talked about growing up watching his parents work side by side, learning what real partnership looked like. Margaret stood and told the story of the shooting contest, which the younger children had never heard, describing how Annalise had beaten every man there and how August had cheered so loud people thought he had won. "That is when I knew," Margaret said, winking at her sister. "The second I saw how that cowboy looked at her, I knew they were going to get married. It just took them a while to figure it out themselves." Everyone laughed, and then August was being called to speak. He stood, pulling Annalise up with him, keeping her hand firmly in his. "23 years ago," he said, "I went to a shooting contest and saw something remarkable. A woman stepped up and showed everyone there what real courage and skill looked like. I could not help but cheer for her because she deserved to be celebrated. But what I did not know then, what I could not have known, was that she was about to shoot her way right into my heart and change my whole life." He turned to look at Annalise directly. "You saved your ranch that day, but you saved me too. You gave me a home, a family, a purpose bigger than myself. Every morning I wake up grateful that I was there that day, grateful that I was loud enough for you to notice me, grateful for every single moment we have shared since." Annalise was crying openly now, and she did not care who saw. "I am the grateful one," she said. "You gave me everything I did not even know I needed. You showed me that being strong did not mean being alone. You taught me that love was not a weakness, but the greatest strength of all." They kissed while their family applauded, and someone started playing music again. August swept Annalise into a dance, just like he had at their wedding, just like he had 1,000 times since. As they moved together, perfectly in sync after years of practice, Annalise thought about the girl she had been, terrified and determined, shouldering impossible burdens alone. She wished she could go back and tell that girl that everything was going to be all right, better than all right, that the contest she was so nervous about would change her life in ways she could not imagine, that she would find love when she least expected it, with a man who would stand beside her through everything, that she would build a family and a legacy and a life full of more joy than she ever dreamed possible. But maybe that girl already knew deep down. Maybe that was why she had the courage to step up to the line and take that shot, because somewhere in her heart, she believed that the future could be better than the past, that taking a risk could lead to something wonderful. The party continued long into the night, full of laughter and music and love. When the last guest finally left and the children were all tucked into bed, wherever they were sleeping, Annalise and August walked out to their favorite spot, a little rise that overlooked the ranch. The moon was full and bright, casting silver light across the land they had built together. Do you remember the night after the contest? Annalise asked. When we camped by the creek and talked until dawn? I remember everything about that night, August said. I remember thinking I had never met anyone like you. I remember wanting to stay there forever, just the two of us in the stars. I felt the same way. I was scared of how much I already cared about you. Annalise leaned into him. But I do not regret it for a second, not one single second. Neither do I, August said. He was quiet for a moment, then added, You know, I should probably tell you something. I have told you I went to that contest just to watch, that I did not compete because I had bought my mother a stove and did not have entry money. Yes, that was true, but it was not the whole truth. I did have enough money for the entry fee. I chose to buy the stove instead because I thought the contest would just be another year of watching the same men compete, nothing special. He smiled ruefully. Then you showed up and proved me absolutely wrong. And I am so glad I was watching from the crowd instead of competing, because if I had been focused on my own shooting, I might have missed you. I might not have been in the right place to start cheering, to catch your attention. Annalise pulled back to look at him. You think that would have changed things? Maybe. Maybe not, but I am glad it happened the way it did. I am glad I was free to see you clearly, to appreciate what you were doing, to make enough noise that you noticed me too. I would have noticed you anyway, Annalise said confidently. You are not exactly easy to overlook. August laughed. Maybe. But I am still glad. Every choice I made, every decision, every random moment that put me in that place on that day, I am grateful for all of it because it led me to you. They stayed out there for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the stars wheel slowly overhead. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new work to be done, but tonight was for celebration, for gratitude, for recognizing how blessed they were. As the years continued to unfold, the pattern of their life became even richer. Thomas and Catherine had 4 children, giving Annalise and August a full complement of grandchildren to spoil. Emma eventually did marry, at 30, to a lawyer from Dallas who was brilliant and kind and completely in awe of his wife's talents. Robert married his red-headed sweetheart and took over the breeding program for the ranch horses, developing a reputation across Texas for quality stock. Margaret's children grew and had children of their own. The family expanded and flourished, branches of a tree with strong roots. Every holiday and birthday brought everyone together, the ranch house bursting with life and noise and love. When Annalise turned 60, August threw her a surprise party that brought people from all over the state. Former competitors from the shooting contest showed up, old men now, to tell stories about the day a woman had shown them all up. The tournament organizer came, ancient and bent, to present her with a framed newspaper article from 1884 that detailed her historic win. I was wrong about you, he said, his voice thin with age. I laughed when you registered. I did not think a woman could compete. You taught me better, and I have never forgotten it. Thank you, Annalise said, accepting both the article and the apology with grace. But the best moment of the party came when August stood up to speak. He was 63 now, still strong from ranch work, but moving a bit slower than he used to. His hair was completely silver, his face weathered by decades of sun and wind, but his eyes still held the same warmth and love they always had. 60 years ago, he began, and everyone laughed because they knew he was going to tell the story again, the story that had become family legend. A woman walked into a shooting contest and changed history. She changed my history, certainly. I like to think I was smart enough to recognize a miracle when I saw one, wise enough to cheer loudly enough to be heard. He looked at Annalise, and his voice grew softer, more intimate, even though 100 people were listening. Every day with you has been an adventure. You have been my partner, my best friend, my greatest love. You shot better than any man at that contest, but more importantly, you loved better than anyone I have ever known. You built a home and a family and a legacy that will last for generations. He crossed to where she sat and knelt beside her chair, just like he had on the porch all those decades ago. Annalise Harper Jensen, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. I would live this life 1,000 times over, just for the privilege of being yours. Annalise cupped his face in her hands, not caring that everyone was watching, that many people were crying. And I would choose you every single time, she said. Every time. They kissed, and the applause was deafening, but neither of them heard it. In that moment, they were back at the contest, young and full of possibility. They were on the porch the night he proposed. They were in the little church saying their vows. They were in all the moments that had made their life together, every kiss and laugh and shared burden woven into something beautiful and unbreakable. The party went on around them, but August pulled Annalise onto the dance floor, and they moved together, slower than they used to, but no less in sync. Their children and grandchildren joined them, and then their friends, until everyone was dancing under the stars. I am the luckiest man alive, August murmured against her hair. Then I am the luckiest woman, Annalise replied, because I got you. Years continued to pass, bringing both joy and sorrow, as all lives do. August's mother passed away peacefully in her sleep at 91. Margaret's husband died after a brief illness, and she moved back to the ranch to be close to family. Robert's youngest son was thrown from a horse and broke his leg, scaring everyone until the doctor assured them he would heal completely. Through it all, Annalise and August faced everything together, just as they always had. When Annalise developed trouble with her eyes, making shooting difficult, August spent hours reading to her every evening. When August hurt his back and could not work for a month, Annalise managed the ranch with help from their children, never complaining about the extra burden. On their 40th wedding anniversary, their family organized a massive celebration. All 5 of their grandchildren were there, along with 3 great-grandchildren. The ranch was decorated with flowers and ribbons, and someone had strung lights in the trees, making the whole place look magical. Thomas stood to give a speech, his own hair starting to gray now. My parents taught me that love is not just a feeling, but a choice you make every day, he said. A choice to show up, to work hard, to support each other through good times and bad. They taught me that a true partnership means being willing to carry each other when one of you stumbles. Looking at them now, after 40 years, I see that they are still making that choice every single day. Emma spoke next, her lawyer husband standing proudly beside her. My mother taught me to be brave, to take my shot even when people say I cannot. My father taught me that the best men are the ones who cheer the loudest for the women they love. Together, they taught me what to look for, what to hold out for. I am grateful every day for their example. Robert's speech was shorter, but no less heartfelt. They taught me that strength comes in many forms, that gentleness is not weakness, that real power is using your abilities to protect and provide for those you love. They showed me what it means to build a legacy. Finally, August stood, pulling Annalise up with him as he always did. 40 years, he said wonderingly. It feels like yesterday and forever all at once. I have loved this woman since the moment I saw her face her fears and prove everyone wrong. I have loved her through every challenge and every triumph. I have loved her in sickness and in health, in prosperity and in hardship, exactly as I promised I would. He turned to face her fully. Annalise, you are my heart. You are my home. 40 years ago, I promised to stand beside you for the rest of my life, and it has been the greatest honor of my existence. I would do it all again in a heartbeat. Annalise was crying, but she was also smiling. 40 years, she echoed. And I am still madly in love with you, still grateful for the day you cheered for me, still amazed that I get to call you mine. They danced again, slower now, their movements careful but still graceful. Around them, their family watched with love and pride, understanding that they were witnessing something rare and precious, a love that had lasted, that had grown deeper and stronger with every passing year. When Annalise was 70 and August was 73, they finally stepped back from the day-to-day management of the ranch. Thomas took over completely, with Robert handling the horse breeding and Emma serving as a business advisor, even though she lived in Dallas. The ranch was in good hands, continuing to prosper under the next generation's care. Annalise and August spent their days doing whatever they pleased. They would take slow rides across the property, remembering all the work they had done, all the memories they had made. They would sit on the porch for hours, watching the light change, holding hands, and talking about everything and nothing. Sometimes old friends would visit, and they would tell stories late into the night. The shooting contest had become legendary, a story passed down through generations. Young women from all over Texas would sometimes show up at the ranch, wanting to meet the woman who had proven that females could compete with men and win. Annalise always welcomed them, sharing her story, but also emphasizing the lessons she had learned. The shooting was important, she would say. It saved my ranch, but what saved my life was having the courage to accept love when it was offered, to let someone stand beside me instead of insisting I had to carry everything alone. That is the real story. One evening, as they sat on their porch watching the sun set over the land they loved, August turned to Annalise with a serious expression. I have been thinking, he said. About what? Annalise asked. About everything. About how lucky I am. About how one random decision to go watch a shooting contest changed the entire course of my life. He squeezed her hand. If I had decided to work that day instead, if I had been tired and stayed home, if I had stood in a different spot and not seen you clearly, so many tiny things that could have gone differently. But they did not, Annalise said firmly. They went exactly the way they were supposed to. I won the contest, you cheered for me, and we found each other. That is what matters. I know, but I think about all the people out there who might miss their moment, who might be in the wrong place or too scared to cheer or too proud to accept help. August looked at her intently. Maybe we should write it down, our story, so people know that sometimes the best things in life come when you take a risk, when you show up and make noise about the things that matter. Annalise considered this. What would we say? The truth, that you were brave enough to compete even when everyone doubted you, that you shot better than any man at that contest, that I cheered louder than anyone there because I could not help myself, that we fell in love and built a life and were happy, truly happy, for more than 50 years. That sounds like a good story, Annalise said softly. A true story. They did write it down, spending the next several months working together to chronicle their life. They wrote about the contest, about falling in love, about building the ranch and raising their family. They wrote about the hard times and the good times, the fears and the triumphs. They wrote it all down so that future generations would know where they came from, would understand the power of courage and love and commitment. When they finished, Emma helped them get it published. It was not a bestseller or anything fancy, just a slim volume that local bookstores carried. But people read it, and some of them wrote letters saying how much it had meant to them, how it had given them courage in their own lives. Annalise was 75 when she finally got sick, a pneumonia that settled deep in her lungs and would not let go. The doctors did what they could, but they were honest. At her age, recovery was uncertain. August never left her side. He sat by her bed, holding her hand, telling her stories about their life together. Their children and grandchildren came to visit, filling the room with love and warmth. Margaret sat with her sister for long hours, remembering their childhood, their father, the day everything changed. One evening, when it was just Annalise and August alone, she opened her eyes and looked at him. "Do you know what my favorite part was?" she asked, her voice weak but clear. "What?" August asked, raising her hand to his lips. "Every part," Annalise said. "Every single moment with you was my favorite. Even the hard ones. Even when I was scared or tired or overwhelmed. Having you beside me made everything better, made it all worthwhile. You made my life worthwhile," August said, tears streaming down his weathered face. "You gave me everything I ever wanted and so much I did not even know to dream about." "No regrets?" Annalise asked. "Not a single one. Well, maybe one." "What?" "That I did not cheer even louder that day. Loud enough that the whole state of Texas could hear me celebrating you." Annalise smiled, the expression lighting up her tired face. "I heard you. That is all that mattered. I heard you and I knew someone saw me, really saw me, and that made all the difference." She passed away peacefully 3 days later, surrounded by her family, with August holding her hand. The funeral was enormous, attended by hundreds of people whose lives she had touched. They told stories about her shooting, her strength, her kindness, her love. August bore it all with quiet dignity, but everyone could see that a part of him had died with her. They had been together for 53 years, a love story for the ages, and now he was alone, but not entirely alone. His children rallied around him, making sure he was never lonely for long. His grandchildren visited constantly, and his great-grandchildren climbed into his lap and begged for stories about the amazing woman they called Grandma Great. August lived for 5 more years, years he spent making sure everyone knew about Annalise. He talked about her constantly, keeping her memory alive. He tended her grave every single day, bringing wildflowers like the ones she had worn in her hair on their wedding day. On what would have been their 58th anniversary, August sat on the porch where he had proposed, where they had danced 1,000 dances, where they had built their life. He was 81 now, tired and ready. He thought about the day he had seen a woman step up to a shooting line and change his world. He thought about every moment since, every laugh and kiss and shared burden. "I am coming, my love," he whispered to the wind. "Wait for me." They found him the next morning, peaceful in his sleep, a smile on his face. The family buried him next to Annalise, their headstones side by side, together as they had been in life. The ranch continued to flourish under Thomas and his children. Emma's daughter, named Annalise after her great-grandmother, proved to have the same sharp eye and steady hand. Robert's sons expanded the horse breeding program until their stock was sought after across 3 states. The story of the shooting contest and the cowboy who cheered became family legend, told and retold to each new generation. Young people would visit the graves, reading the inscriptions. Annalise's read, "She shot better than any man and loved better than anyone." August's read, "He cheered louder than anyone and loved best of all." Years later, decades later, a young woman came to the ranch. She was 22, the same age Annalise had been at the contest, and she carried a rifle and a dream. She wanted to enter a shooting competition, but was scared of what people would say, what they would think. Thomas's grandson, who ran the ranch now, invited her to sit on the porch. He told her the story of his great-grandmother, about courage and love and taking your shot even when you are terrified. Did she ever regret it? The girl asked. Competing? drawing all that attention? Never, Thomas's grandson said firmly. She said it was the best decision she ever made, not just because she won the money, though that saved the ranch, but because it put her in the right place at the right time to meet my great-grandfather, and that, she always said, was worth more than any prize money could ever be. The girl left with new courage, and 6 months later, they got a letter. She had competed and won, and she had met someone at that contest, too, someone who had cheered for her louder than anyone else. The cycle continued, as it always does. Love and courage, strength and hope, passed down through generations. The ranch stood as testament to what two people could build when they loved each other wholly and worked together faithfully. On clear nights, when the stars are bright and the wind whispers through the grass, some say you can still hear it, the sound of a cowboy cheering, loud and joyful, celebrating the woman he loved. And if you listen closely, you can hear her too, the sharp crack of a rifle hitting its mark, the sound of someone taking their best shot and making it count. Because that is what they did, Annalise and August. They took their shot at love, at life, at building something lasting. And they hit the mark perfectly, creating a legacy that would endure long after they were gone. Their story became more than just family history. It became inspiration, proof that courage can change your life, that love can save you, that one perfect moment can alter everything. It showed that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is step up and take your shot, and that the best thing someone else can do is cheer for you while you do it. The ranch still stands today, a thriving operation run by the sixth generation of the family that Annalise and August built. Visitors come from all over, wanting to see where the legendary shooting contest winner lived, wanting to hear the story of true love that started with a rifle and a cheer. And on the porch of that ranch house, the same porch where August once proposed and where they danced countless dances, there is a plaque. It tells the story in brief, about the contest in 1884, about the woman who won, about the cowboy who cheered. But the last line is what makes people pause, what makes them smile or wipe away tears. It says simply, here, courage met love, and both won. That is the truth of Annalise and August, the story that deserves to be told and remembered. Two people who found each other in the most unlikely way, who built a life of meaning and joy, who loved each other fiercely until death parted them and beyond. Their story reminds us all that sometimes magic is real, that fairy tales can come true, that love really can last forever. And somewhere, in whatever comes after this life, Annalise and August are together still. She is showing him her latest impossible shot, and he is cheering louder than heaven has ever heard, celebrating her the way he always did. Because that is what real love does. It shows up. It makes noise. It celebrates the one it loves, no matter what. That is the legacy they left, the lesson they taught. Be brave enough to take your shot. Be loud enough to be heard. Be loving enough to last. Do those things, and you will build something beautiful, something that outlasts time itself, something that changes the world.